Okay, welcome back students. In our last lecture we have started friction and we have seen 2 points, that what is friction and what causes friction. And in this video we are going to see what are the forms of friction. What are the forms of friction? Okay, so we have to see this, what are the forms of friction. There are different types of friction that we see. The first friction, it is called as static friction. Okay, now what is meant by static friction? Suppose a object is kept, suppose this board is there, this board is kept on a chair. Unless and until we do not move, we do not apply a force on the board from this side or up, down, anywhere else, the board is going to be remaining in the stationary position as it is, unless and until a force is not applied. Okay, got it? 1 minute. Okay, unless and until the force is not applied. So this is nothing but this is called as static friction. Or for example, a very heavy object is there and it is kept on a floor and you try to push that heavy object. It is not possible for you to push that heavy object. Why? Because the applied force is less than the friction force that is making the objects stop. Okay, so this is called as static friction. So if you, in order to move that heavy object, you need to apply a force greater than the force of friction that is caused between the surfaces of the heavy object and the floor, and at that time that object will start moving. So what is static friction? Let us read from the book. At times, even after applying force, you are not able to move an object. What happens to the force at such times? It gets cancelled by another force acting in the opposite direction. This force is known as static friction. So this is known as static friction. Every object at rest possesses static friction which resists motion. So wherever the objects are in a rest position, they possess a static friction. They possess a static friction which resists motion. For example, a book on a desk possesses static friction. Then second type of friction, it is called as sliding friction. It is called as a sliding friction. Okay, suppose a box is there. Okay, and if it is on a smooth surface and you push it, it will go to some distance and it will stop. It will go up till here and it will stop. That means it is sliding smoothly on the surface. It is sliding smoothly on the surface. This is nothing but it is sliding friction. Okay, let us read. When an object slides over a surface, sliding friction is produced. For example, when you push the book on the desk, suppose now if you are in the classroom and the book is on our desk or the bench, if you push it, then the sliding friction takes place. There will be sliding friction between the surfaces of the book and the surface of the desk. So this is the book and this is the desk. So there will be sliding friction between the book surface and the desk surface. And this is nothing but a sliding friction. The third type of friction, it is called as rolling friction. Rolling friction. Okay. Rolling friction always takes place when a round object is there, when the surface is round. Okay, so when this ball is hit, it will start rolling. It will not go straight. It will roll and go. Gol 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 hoke jayega. So this is nothing but it is called as rolling friction. Okay, it is called as rolling friction. When an object rolls over a surface, rolling friction occurs. Rolling offers less friction, whereas sliding offers more friction. Now, when a rolling, if you want to compare a rolling friction and sliding friction, at that time rolling friction is always less and sliding friction is always more. What is the reason? Suppose this is a round object and this is a flat object. Okay, so you can see that only this much area of the ball is touching the surface. Only this much area of the ball is touching the surface. That means the area in contact of the ball and the surface is very less. So lesser the area, lesser the grooves and ridges are in contact. And in sliding friction, you can see that a more greater surface area is in contact with the surface of the floor or the bench or whatever, wherever we are moving it. So the amount of grooves and ridges in contact or the amount of irregularities in the contact will be more. Here the amount of irregularities of both the surface in contact is less. So rolling friction is always less than the sliding friction. Let us find out why. You already know that friction arises when two surfaces rub against each other. In rolling friction, only a small portion of the object is in direct contact with the surface on which it moves. That is why it generates less friction. That is why it generates less friction. The next type of friction, that is called as the fourth type of friction or the form of friction, it is called as fluid friction. It is called as fluid friction. Now, usually when we talk about the fluid, we think that it is a liquid. But when we talk about the fluid, here it means a gas or a liquid. A gas or a liquid. So, whenever an object is moving in a air or in a gas, or the object is moving in a liquid surface like water, at that time fluid friction is generated, because again the surface is here, the friction is between the water and the object, and when the object is traveling in the air like an aeroplane, at that time the aeroplane is traveling in the air, but still there is friction between the air and the aeroplane. Okay, fluid friction is also called as drag. In other words, it is also called as drag. Okay, let us read. Friction also occurs between a fluid, that is liquid or gas, and an object moving through it. When an object moves through a fluid, it encounters friction. Friction caused by a fluid is known as fluid friction. A fish swimming in water and ships moving in the ocean encounter fluid friction. A surfer is able to glide over ocean waves because of fluid friction. You must have seen sea surfing. So at that time when that surfer is moving, at that time he experiences the fluid friction, or because of fluid friction he is able to move on the surface of the ocean. Friction depends on the speed with which an object moves in the fluid. This type of friction is also called drag. This type of friction is also called drag. Friction also depends on the shape of the object that moves through a fluid. Now, fluid friction or drag, it depends upon the two things, that is the speed of the object, the speed by which the object is moving, and the shape of the object. The shape of the object. For example, if you see the fishes have a streamline shape. Okay, tapering at the one end and broader at the another end, and broader in the between, and again tapering at the another end. If you see the plane also has the same kind of structure. So this is called as streamline structure. You have already learnt in 5th standard. So streamline structure helps to reduce the fluid friction. Okay. The streamline shape of the plane, ship, birds and aquatic animals such as fish and dolphins reduce the fluid friction. So how the fluid friction, why the fluid friction is there? Because the object is moving in the liquid or gas. So fishes, aeroplanes, ships, birds, they all have streamlined shape, which reduces the fluid friction. More the speed of the object, more the friction would be there. Have you seen the golf ball? You can see that on the golf ball there are some dots present. उसके ऊपर छोटे छोटे ऐसे गड्ढे होते हैं. It is not plain. It is not plain. Okay, so there are small holes, not holes, but there are small like this dents made on the golf ball. So when the golf ball is moving in the air, it reduces the drag of the ball, and the ball can travel more distances. It can travel more distance. Therefore, to reduce the drag or to reduce the fluid friction, the golf ball has such kind of things, such kind of design on it. Okay, so these are the forms of friction. So we have seen the forms of friction. Now the next topic that we are going to discuss is that is friction a necessary evil? Now in the book itself it says friction is a necessary evil. It is an evil and a bad thing, but it is necessary also. It is necessary also. Okay, so why? So that means advantage and disadvantage of friction. Okay, so what are the advantage of friction? Let us see advantages of friction. Although friction slows down a moving object, it is essential for an object to move on a solid surface. So although friction is slowing down the object, but it is very essential that the object should move in a medium. Okay, either it is on a solid surface, it is in a liquid, or it is in a gas. That is why tires of vehicles have grooves. Okay, now if you see our tires of vehicles, let it be a car, let it be a cycle, or let it be our two-wheelers, you see that there are some designs made on that tires. और tires के ऊपर कुछ designs होते हैं. Those designs that are made on the tires, they are called as tread marks. TREAD, tread marks. Okay, or it is also called as treading of tires. Now what happens if you are using the vehicle for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years continuously? At that time usually the rear tire of our vehicle, it flattens, it smoothens out, वो चिकना हो जाता है ना? These marks are gone, these marks wear out and it becomes plain. So at that time the garage person suggests us to change the tire. Why? Because these tread marks or the grooves made on the tire, it helps us to move on the surface. If these tread marks are not there, these grooves are not there, and you apply the brake, at that time that it is possible that our bike or our vehicle may skid. हमारी बाइक या vehicle skid हो सकती है. Therefore, this treading or tread marks or grooves are present on our tires. Usually when you are moving on a slippery road, like a muddy road, which if a rain is there and you are moving on a muddy road, हमारी साइकिल भी स्लिप होती है उसके ऊपर ब्रेक मारने के बाद, व्हीकल्स भी स्लिप होते हैं ब्रेक मारने के बाद. ओके, so this is why the tread marks are there. So though friction stops the things, but there are advantages of friction. If there is no friction between the chalk and the board, we are not able to write. You take a ball pen and try to write it on the glass surface. It is not possible to write with the ball pen. With the crayons you can write because crayons are rough. So this is why friction is advantageous at some times. If you are moving on a surface wherein it is slippery, there is no friction, you cannot walk, you will slip down on that surface. Like in the bathroom when the soapy water is there, और घर में पोछा लगा रहे हैं अगर सोपी वाटर है तो हम फिसल के गिर सकते हैं. So that's why friction is necessary also. That is why tires of vehicles have grooves. The grooves increases friction between the road and the tires and enable the vehicle to move on the road. The sole of a shoe also has grooves of a similar for a similar reason. If you turn around your shoes and see, you can see that there are designs present on the sole which are helping for friction. अगर वो plain हो जाते हैं, चिकने हो जाते हैं, वो चप्पल या वो shoes, we slip off. We cannot walk properly on the ground. Friction also helps to bring a moving vehicle to a halt by applying brakes. Suppose an object is moving and we want to stop it, and if friction is not there, are we going to able to stop it? For example, a train is there, it is passing, it is going, it has to be stopped on a station. If we are not applying the brakes and the friction is not there, the train will never stop and the accidents may happen, है ना? जहाँ पे रुकना चाहिए वहाँ पे रुकेंगी नहीं तो कुछ भी हो सकता है. The friction between the head of a matchstick and the rough surface of a matchbox generates enough heat to ignite a matchstick. So when we are lighting a matchstick, there is a friction between the matchbox, surface of matchbox, and the head of the stick, which helps it to ignite. Ignite means आग लगना. Many of our simple day-to-day activities such as sitting, walking, and writing would not be possible if there was no friction. So, if friction is not there, then our day to day activities will not be possible. Like we are walking on the road, we are getting up, we are sitting down, we are writing on a paper. Okay, so friction is everywhere. We cannot reduce the friction to zero. Please take the note of this point, that we cannot reduce the friction to zero because such an surface practically is impossible. We cannot make such a surface practically wherein the friction would be zero. If we make such a surface, suppose this is a surface which is practically frictionless, there is zero friction here, and we start moving a marble on this, the marble will never stop, it will continuously move all the time. So making an frictionless surface is very impossible. Ideally we can make, but practically it is not possible. So advantages of frictions are this: